good friend, and it's always fun to catch up with the great Mike Wise on the drive here in Salt Lake on a Thursday. Mike, what's up, man?
Spence, it's good to be talking to the king of all media in God's country. I'm happy to be at your service. And I think I saw you at David Stern's funeral, right?
Yep. I was there. Ran into you.
We caught up for a couple minutes there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it.
How you doing, man? Is everything good?
What a crazy couple months, huh?
Yeah. No doubt, man. And you know what? Let's actually start right there, because I did run into you at the Stern Memorial, and obviously really sad news, and obviously a life well lived. But I thought it was a really interesting, service. I thought they did a really good job. I thought Pat Riley could have trimmed up about 15 minutes off his speech, and we all would have been fine. But what'd you think? What'd you think of that day?
Yeah, it blew me away. I mean, Magic getting emotional. All these people from sort of the corners of the NBA universe, his kids talking. Every person who spoke, that was the wild thing. Like, of all the people you couldn't wait to hear, Riles was going to be it. And the great thing is he started with, I just want to say there was a moment when David Stern taught me it's not about me. It's about everybody else in this league. And then he talked about himself for the next full 45 minutes. It was crazy. But other than that, yeah, Riles, it was moving. It was emotional. It was funny. They paid tribute like the best way they could to him in such a heartfelt way. And it's like when they say family, and it's such a cliche in sports, like, oh, we're a family. Roger Goodell loves to say, oh, it's the NFL family. Like, I would love to see anywhere else where a professional sports league is more of a family than the NBA. Like, it doesn't matter whether you come from the media, or you come from the executive side or the player side. That genuinely people see your face and they remember you, and they know that it's not about who won the title. It's about relationships you built over the years. And I think, I don't know. I really felt a kinship with a lot of people there. And if you would have told me Kobe Bryant was going to pass away right after that, I would have said it's the craziest thing of all time.
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously, unbelievably sad, and I want to get to that in a little bit, but I want to build off what you just said, because that is so spot on. And I try to tell people all the time, like, for instance, we have Frank Isola on every Monday, and then running into you, and even Allen Houston was there. We saw Kurt Thomas, ran into Charles Smith. It doesn't matter if it was members of the, we talked to Mike Lupica still quite a bit. Like, it doesn't matter if it was members of the media or even players, or Ernie Grunfeld, Ed Tapscott. Like, I try to tell people all the time, like, it was such a fun time to be part of that run in the 90s. And, Mike, it is such a far cry from what the Garden and the Knicks are now,
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, just highlighted by the latest, the Spike Lee news.
Yeah.
that he's trying to use the employee entrance, and they basically threw him out because he's supposed to use a VIP entrance, and who knows what really happened. But the bottom line is the Knicks put out a press release about Spike Lee's, saying this is ridiculous, that he was wrong. I was thinking out loud, I think on Twitter, like, could you imagine Jeannie Buss putting out a statement saying, Jack Nicholson really is an annoying boob, and we just don't, we don't want to deal with him right now, or the Clippers saying, Billy Crystal, start using the right entrance, and saying that, the idea that he'd been wronged is completely fabrication. I mean, I've never seen a fan base like screw with its fans so much. You can make an argument that Spike Lee has given them a Q rating they don't even deserve over the last 20 years. And if Spike Lee told me right now, I own the Knicks, and he spent $9 million on tickets over the years, Spencer, I would just say, look, if you want to rappel with a rope from the pinwheel ceiling and to get into the place, you go ahead. I don't care how you get in the Garden.
I totally agree, man. And the funny thing, Mike, is like, my producer's a great kid, love him, works hard, but 25 years old. And, kids that age literally don't remember a time when there was function in the Garden. The team was good. They played hard. You took pride in being a Knicks fan. Like, it has been so long since those years when, you were at the New York Times and my father was running the show, and we were all kind of together And it just, I want it to come back for that city so badly, but I just don't think it's going to until that dude sells the team.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a top-down toxic management thing. I've seen it with Washington's NFL franchise here, and everybody was waiting for that change. What's funny is how much drama there was back then. There was always there was infighting. And I think it was Jeff Van Gundy told me, he goes, I saw Ernie recently, and I said, God, we never knew how good we had it. And it's funny because you look back and they contended every year, and it was just it was like you were covering something. I can't believe we gave them grief for ever winning 48 games. Oh my God, those fans would die right now, Spencer, for a 42-win season.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
no, you're right. That was disappointing. That part of the Knicks.
But it really was such a fun time, man. Like, you bring up Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff comes on the show all the time. You had Mike Breen on your podcast recently. We had Mike on not too long ago.
Yeah.
Like, what was it like to sit down with Mike? I mean, you've known Mike for the better part of 20, 25 years. What was that conversation like?
Oh, it was just, my thing with this is, and I love doing these kind of stories because you can almost ask anybody in their life, whether you went through a tough time at one point, I went through a tough, and people think, oh, you're a silver spoon because this was your day. No, everybody goes through something to get somewhere. And I I sort of gave him that old, okay, Breen, fork in the road. You're here now, but where could you have been? And he talks about how he was so dejected when he didn't get the Villanova announcing job. That he applied for, I guess, a couple years out of college, and he thought he was ready because he'd done Fordham games, and and he was so dejected after he got the letter that he went to his dad, who was a pipe fitter in New York, and said, Dad, I'm going to be a pipe fitter. I can't deal with this profession anymore. And his dad, of all people, would have been proud that his son followed in his footsteps, said, I want you to give sports media at least one more shot. Just give it one more shot. And he gets this NBC producer gig at some NBC radio, and and it turns into all of a sudden he's on WFAN and the fan in New York, and then all of a sudden he's calling again. Boom, his career just takes off. But if not for his dad saying that and that fork in the road, who knows where Mike Breen is today?
Yeah, no, that's crazy. And truly, and look, I'm biased because like you, I remember Mike, calling Knick games and filling in for Marv first, and then when Marv was let go, getting that gig. I think Mike is the best there is, and again, I'm biased, but really excited for him to hear the Hall of Fame announcement. So, like I said, I'm biased, but I think he's the best, Mike. I really do.
Oh, I think if you could put him in, he's the kind of person when you tell him that, of course, he's like, I really appreciate it, but I just see myself as Kevin Harlan or Marv. He claims he'll say Marv every day.
Yeah,
say Marv is the greatest. He'll always be the greatest. Which just shows you how unselfish he is, how real he is. But I don't think that there'd be a lot of people who wouldn't argue with you about that, and I'd probably be one of them. I love Mike Breen.
I forgot I wanted to do this because we were talking about the commissioner and his passing. Mike, I think you and I were, if we weren't the two last people to sit down with him, we were two of the last people to sit down with him. I had him on my podcast for about an hour, and then the next month you had him on, and I don't know how many other long-form interviews he did after that. What do you remember from that last conversation with the commissioner?
Yeah, so apparently he didn't, because Mark Stein came up to me, sort of scoured the whole thing, and he came up to me at the memorial service and said that was the last in-depth interview he did with anybody, and which is even, I don't know, weirder on some fronts because, we walked into his office in Manhattan with the Pure Hoops media crew who not only taped it, and for audio, but filmed it because Stern, David gave us so much access. And I mean, he wasn't obviously as razor sharp and, how he could just cut you with a knife with his words. He was he mellowed a little bit, but mostly he was humorous. He was funny. He was good natured. And you could ask him anything. At one point I told him come on. I mean, and you would never think I never tell him this when I was covering, but I've said something to the fact of, come on, you could be a a-hole or whatever. And I actually said the word out, and he looks at me and he points his fingers to himself and he goes, moi? like, okay, yeah, I was. But I also had a heart, and this is what, So, you could ask him anything. When he talked about how he saw the global game and when he knew that the thing was going to take off, like just this moment in some Soviet republic where all these guys are asking him, like, he realizes he's in this communist country and they hate capitalism. And then the leaders of the country are basically coming up to him and saying, hey, is Sabonis ever going to get a chance to play in the NBA? And he goes, if the Communist Party leaders want Sabonis to play, he's freaking going to play in the NBA. And so at any rate, like, all these things happen, and I just got out of there thinking, God, I'm glad I know David Stern.
Yeah.
I'm just glad I know him. He's like, he hugs me at the end, and he goes, old friends are the best friends. And I walked out of there thinking, wow, I was just a schlub out of Sacramento when the New York Times hired me, and I spent 90 minutes with the freaking commissioner of the NBA for, during its most important seminal time in sports pop culture history, and the guy remembered me, and so all of it was great, and it broke my heart. It broke my heart when I heard that he had a brain hemorrhage, and he died, shortly after that.
Yeah.
It just he deserved a better and longer retirement after putting so much work in.
Chatting with Mike Wise on the show. You can get him on Twitter at Mike Wise Guy. Has a great podcast. Does a bunch of different stuff. He's been around for the better part of 30 years. New York Times, Washington Post, ESPN. Mike, you mentioned the Kobe situation, and I mean, I couldn't believe I didn't know Kobe like I knew Commissioner Stern, but I had met him on several occasions. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to come on air and be like, he was my best friend. Like, no, I met him, and I didn't know him all that well, but I couldn't believe just how personally affected I was by the whole thing, and just what a heavy, heavy situation it was. So sad, so tragic. Your thoughts on that, and ultimately, what is Kobe's lasting legacy?
I mean, that was a tough one because for me, the last time I interviewed him was his final year, and it was one of the final games in New Orleans outside the Pelicans locker room. And I asked him something to the effect of, did you ever see Shawshank Redemption? The part where Morgan Freeman is asked, are you a changed man? And he says, that kid's not there anymore. Like, what would an old Kobe say to a young Kobe? And he looked at me deadpan. He goes, it wouldn't have mattered. I would have never listened. And but at any rate, I think he turned that question into the documentary, Dear Basketball. And the bottom line is, like, I mean, Kobe loved basketball like he loved nothing in life. Not a person, maybe his daughters, but Kobe loved basketball like no one I've ever met, and before or since. And people say Michael Jordan loved the game. Yes, he loved the game. Kobe Bryant spent every waking hour trying to perfect his craft. And it sometimes alienated him from teammates. Sometimes it alienated him from media people who wondered, doesn't this guy have a life outside the game? But that's how much Kobe loved the game. With all the talent he had, he still wanted to be the greatest. And he came very close. And so, look, I met him when he was 19. I talked him into taking me a ride around L.A., in his BMW, when he probably drove BMWs when he was 19. And and I did a story for the Times about this kid who was like listening to the Spice Girls in his car. And he was just such a fresh-faced young kid. And then obviously came the Colorado sexual assault case, and he gets through that, and he develops this whatever Mamba mentality. It's him against the world. And yet at the end, there was this softness about him and this sort of new persona that developed, the dad. And I guess it affected me deeply, but more than that, Spence, I'm blown away that it affected so many other people. I never saw him as sort of an Ali-like figure. Yeah. And when you hear these stories about how not only the Make-A-Wish people, but all the things he did that he never wanted any kind of press for, those things, like he affected. I didn't realize how many lives he'd impacted outside of basketball, and that part of it. It makes especially the daughter stuff, the fact that 3 kids lost their lives on that helicopter, but more so the fact that Kobe Bryant had so much to give beyond basketball that he was just finding out about. And so, I don't know. That's a long-winded answer to his legacy, I guess.
No, all good, man, and good stuff. But, Mike, we're up against it, so we've got to catch a break. But
sure.
I would love to do this again soon. And if you ever need anything from me, you have my number. I'll be there for you no matter what, man, all right?
Oh, always, Spence, always. I'm going to get some of that Isola money one day.
One day, brother.
Right,
keep it up, all right?
Take care. Enjoy.
You too, my man.
Good luck to the Utes women tonight.
Appreciate that.